A World Englishes Circle model, which has become the best known model of World Englishes, is Baraj Khajru's three circle model. The model comprises three concentric circles, which means three circles with the same center: the inner circle, the outer circle, and the expanding circle. According to Baraj Khajru, these circles indicate the function and status of English in different parts of the world, which means that these circles represent the importance English has in these countries and different functions that English is used to perform. The inner circle countries comprise USA, UK, Canada, New Zealand, Australia. The outer circle comprises countries where English is used as second language, for example, Pakistan, India, Philippines, Nigeria, etc. An expanding circle comprises countries where English is used as a foreign language, for example, Korea, China, Japan, Saudi Arabia, UAE, etc. This classification of three circles also corresponds with the classification of English as a native language, English as a foreign language, and English as a second language that we have. The inner circle overlaps with the ENL, English as a native language. The outer circle overlaps with ESL, English as a second language. And the expanding circle overlaps with EFL, English as a foreign language. The inner circle countries, as we have just said, comprise countries like USA, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. English spread to these countries, or English reached these countries as a result of what is called the first diaspora of English-speaking people. A diaspora is a movement or migration of a group of people to another region or to another country for the sake of settlement, and in which they leave their homeland completely and establish their homes in a new country. That's diaspora, when people move to another country leaving behind their ancestral homeland. English diaspora, we have more than one English diasporas actually. The first diaspora was when speakers from Britain established their settlements in Australia, New Zealand, mainly in North America and Australia. So what happened was a large number of speakers, English speakers from Britain, migrated to North America and Australia. They migrated to these countries in search of greener pastures. So they established large settlements in these countries. And then later on they brought in some cases, some had brought their families with them. And in other cases, they later on brought their families to these countries. In establishing their own settlements, one bad thing that they did was they completely displaced the indigenous local population, which means that they had fights with them, sometimes large-scale wars, and completely displaced the local people. That is why we see that today in the USA, for example, the native Indian people are completely marginalized. They are now in a minority. The same is true for Australian Aborigines, that now they are in a minority. So, in this first diaspora, the English speakers from Britain established their settlements, migrated to North America and Australia, established large-scale settlements, and completely displaced the indigenous population. And of course, with them, they took their language. Some features of the inner circle are that these countries traditionally comprise monolingual native speakers of English, which means that most of these people are monolingual. They only know, use, and are good at only English. So they are monolinguals. They are the actual native speakers of English, use English as their first language, and sometimes the only language. So more often than not, they know only English and no other language. The dominant culture in these countries is also based around English, which means their festivals, their celebrations, etc. They're also based around English and the culture which is associated with the English language. So the inner circle comprises countries which are traditionally called native English-speaking countries, USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand.